photography and yearbook students. Today we're going to go over a fun technique of creating some type of motion blur or pull focus from a background of an image by creating an artificial motion blur or background blur to enhance a photo. So here I have a picture of my daughter jumping on the trampoline, and the background already has some nice level of blurring to it, but I really want to enhance that idea of her jumping up and down. So to do this, I'm going to right click on my background layer and duplicate it. So now I have a copy, and I'm going to blur this copy, and I'm going to blur it pretty severely by going to the filter menu, and I'm going to choose blur, and then there's a couple of different choices of how to blur it. I'm going to go with a motion blur since she's jumping up and down, and we can decide which direction we want the motion to go, and since she's moving vertically, I'm going to put this fairly vertically as she's exploding up from the trampoline. I can also adjust just how much of this blur I'm going to apply to the image. And I almost want to go with too much, where the whole image is really obscured, because I'm going to have control over this in the end. So here I have a pretty good level of the motion blur. I'm going to click OK. And now I have my background, which has the focus, and I have my top copy, which has been blurred. I'm going to add a layer mask to this by clicking the Add Layer Mask icon at the bottom of the Layers palette. And now I have my white layer mask. I'm going to do something a little unusual, which is to take the paint bucket. I'm going to completely fill the layer mask with black. So instead of having an area where I'm going to be bringing the focus back, I'm going to be adding the blur in. So I'll take my paintbrush. I'm not going to set it to 100% because this is where my level of control will come in. I'm going to set it around 75% or so. And I'm going to make it fairly large. I'm going to come in here with some white paint, and I'm going to start painting away the focus around her. I can zoom in a little bit so you can see what's happening around the edges of her hands. I'm going to make the brush just a little bit smaller so I can get in to some spots. So now you can see on her sleeves, the bottom of her dress. Okay, but I'm going to leave her face and other parts of her in focus. Okay, let's just pretend I went too far. I added a little too much blurring there. If I switch my paintbrush back to black, you can do that by hitting X on the keyboard. I can come back in and clean that up. So I'm pretty happy with those results. Maybe I'll make the corners a little more. But if I unclick the visibility, there's my original, and here it is with some of this motion blur, and we get that pulling of the fabric and her hair and things, and it kind of adds a fun element, a kind of a wow factor to that image. So right now I have layers open, so if I save this as a Photoshop file, I can come back to it, I can make changes, I can increase and decrease the amount of blurring I've used, or if I flatten my image and file save as a JPEG, and I'm just going to add the word blur to this file so I know that it's the one that I added the blur to, and there we have it. There is my image with some blur added to it.